Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of this podcast. I want to welcome you all back. And I don't even have a great story to tell you in the beginning of this episode, so I feel like we're just going to dive right in. Let's just start with this week's topic. And as you can already tell from the title of this episode, we're talking about movies today. Yeah, I chose the topic because I thought, you know what, just tackle the biggest topic that you can think of in the second week of January 2023. No, but I felt like I talked about books, so I kind of had to talk about movies too. I like movies better than I like books. Like, I love books and reading is a lot of fun. But I love watching movies. It's just amazing. I do prefer watching a movie over reading a book. I'm sorry. It depends, on the mood I'm in, but movies are definitely my first love. And I'm just going to say that out loud on this podcast. And in this episode, I actually can, because we are talking about movies. And I felt like, how on earth am I going to structure this episode? Because if I just start talking about movies in general, this will quickly turn into something academic. And this is not where I want to go. So I thought I could just talk about the movies I liked. But then how would I pick the movies that I really wanted to talk about? I've seen so many great and so many bad movies in my life. And, I haven't even been on this earth for too long. So very intrigued to see what's still happening in the movie world in the future. But I've already seen so many amazing movies I would like to talk about, but that was just such a broad subcategory. So I thought, might be better to talk about movies that had an impact on me, or movies I keep thinking about. And that happens to me a lot. Sometimes I catch myself in a very regular activity when, I don't know, someone asks me something and I kind of answer with a movie quote, but the other person usually doesn't really know that. So for example, if someone asks me something like, "Do you want to hang out today?" And then sometimes I catch myself being, "Not today." And you know what that reminds me of? Anthony Hopkins' Silence of the Lambs. I don't even know what Jodie Foster says, so he answers, "But not today, Clarice." I don't even know if he says her name, actually. I think he says something like, "But not today." But I keep thinking about that. It just happens to me so much that I answer people, "But not today." And then I feel like, am I answering that person like Hannibal Lecter would? Is that still a healthy situation? I don't know. But anyway, still gonna do that. Still gonna talk about movies that had an impact on me. But then also, I'm gonna be talking about movies I really didn't like, but a lot of other people really liked. So I'm very excited for this category because I know some of you out there will agree with me. There's just no way that I'm the only person on this planet who didn't like, well, the following movies. But yeah, I'm very excited to tackle that. And then also I thought I could mention movies I've never seen, but I kind of should have. And a lot of other people have, and they're like classics, but I just never watched them for some reason. And the list of movies I still have to watch, of course, is endless. And so many more new movies are coming in, sometimes weekly, sometimes, every month. But it keeps it very interesting. It is still such an interesting process. And then sometimes there are so many movies that come in the award season. There are 20 new movies that you want to watch, and you prefer those movies and you still don't watch the classics. And that happens to me so much that I feel like I should just do a month of only watching movies which are classics at this point. I have not seen, well, let me pick something that I do not want to put on my list later. So for example, I've never seen The Godfather. Can you imagine that? It has a sequel. I haven't even started the first one. I haven't even started the first one, But yeah, I haven't fully watched it either, obviously, because I haven't even started it. But so yeah, I should do that at some point in my life. But that's just one of many I haven't seen. But let's just start with the ones that piqued my interest from the very beginning and stayed with me for many, many years, and sometimes, just for a couple of months because I just saw them. recently. But anyway, let's get started, you guys. Alrighty, so we are going to start with the movies I liked. And just as a little disclaimer, those movies are not necessarily critically acclaimed ones. So on my list, there are a couple of movies which a lot of people will just call an average movie experience. And that's fine, you know? I just want to be talking about those movies that had an impact on me and had meaning for me. And if you don't feel the same way, of course, that's totally fine. But maybe I can introduce you to some movies which can ultimately capture your heart anyway. So the first movie I want to talk about is the movie About Time. So About Time is a movie I probably randomly saw on TV one day. It's directed by Richard Curtis and it stars Rachel McAdams, Domhnall Gleeson, Bill Nighy, and many, many other very talented actors and actresses. And the plot of this movie is basically about a family, or all the men in one family who have the ability to time travel. And it's mainly about Domhnall Gleeson's character, who for some reason one day gets introduced to time travel by his dad, and he tries to, use time travel to go back to the past to change his future. And he also does it very randomly. It's never big things, for example, when he introduces himself to a girl he really, really likes and he kind of messes up and he's kind of weird. He just goes back in time and tries again and is very, kind of like sophisticated and confident and dashing. And yeah, it's a very cute movie. So for example, that sounds like a very average movie and like one of those cute ones you watch once and then, you forget about them. But this movie had such a big impact on me for some reason emotionally, because the way they use time travel is very British. And what I mean by that is that it's very understated. It's not like this big thing with, like magic fog and explosions and then someone goes back in time and it's like such a wild ride. They just go into like a closet and then they close their eyes and then they kind of go back in time. And when they come out of this closet, no one knows what happened and they just go for it again and repeat things that they would now do differently. And it's just so cute. And I kind of have to stop myself now because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who still hasn't seen the movie and wants to enjoy it fully without any spoilers. So I will be trying to, talk about all the movies I want to mention in very general terms. But what makes the movie so special for me is that it captures the essence of family so well, like not a lot of movies manage to do. And the way they portray the family and its different members is just amazing. Each family member has their own problems to deal with and then they help each other out. And the way they use time travel to undo certain mistakes also shows you that sometimes, even if you acted differently, things would still turn out for the worse. And of course, that's such a hard lesson to learn, but it makes us understand that sometimes it's very good that we can't go back in time, because even if we had done things differently, it would not have changed the outcome of the big picture. So I think you can learn a lot from the movie. You can start appreciating the little moments you have with your family and your family members. And you kind of start thinking about, wow, I should really live more consciously with my family and my family members and just enjoy the time that we all have and just try to support each other. And yes, again, it's such a cheesy thing, such a cheesy takeaway from a movie. But the way they do it is so very understated, so very British, so very charming. And I think it's a great movie for a Sunday afternoon when you don't know what you want to watch, but you want a good, solid movie experience that can touch your cold little heart. And it's just one of the most surprising movies I've ever seen. I think that's the best word, because I did not expect to have such a great movie experience. And I've just recently talked to one of my friends and she didn't know the movie at first. And then I discussed what it was about and she was like, oh yeah, I do know the movie. And then she was like, oh, it's so nice. And every time we cry when we watch the movie because it's very moving. So highly recommend About Time from 2013. That seems like forever ago, but yeah, it's 10 years ago. Oh God, the movie was made 10 years ago. That feels like forever. Oh my God. Okay, after that slightly depressing fact, let's just move on to movie number two. And movie number two is The Children Act. It was directed by Richard Eyre, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, but you write his surname like you write Jane Eyre, you know, the novel. So I'm hoping it's Richard Eyre. If I butcher any names on this podcast, I'm so sorry. Just gonna throw this out as a disclaimer as well. And it was filmed in 2017. Now, I think it was released in 2017 and probably filmed in 16. But anyway, and it stars Emma Thompson and Stanley Tucci. I mean, isn't that just the best combination? I definitely discovered the movie when I had my I love Emma Thompson phase. I still have it, you know, I still love Emma Thompson, but I feel like at this point I've seen all the movies she starred in. So, yeah, it's kind of a passive phase at this point. But I love her, and I've also fallen in love with Stanley Tucci, which you know, again, from my books episode, because, I mean, that autobiography, it was probably the best book I read in 2022. I also read The Children Act in 2022, by the way, and the book is written by Ian McEwan, so yes, you should also read the book. But maybe, you know, it doesn't really matter if you watch the movie first or read the book first, because they are so close. They adapted it really well in the movie. Right, but let's talk about what the movie is about. So it stars Emma Thompson as a judge named Fiona May, and she has to make a very severe decision because there is a young boy, his name is Adam, and Adam has leukemia. And he is also a Jehovah's Witness. And his parents and Adam and his entire religious community, they have decided that Adam will not accept the blood transfusion that he needs to survive because, of course, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept blood transfusions. And the hospital then appeals to the court and wants to make him have the blood transfusion so he survives. And Emma Thompson, as the judge Fiona May, then goes to talk to Adam, and she finally ultimately has to make the final decision because he's still underage, and she decides that he has to get the blood transfusion. So he survives, he has the blood transfusion, he survives, and then the movie continues. And I'm not going to spoil anything any further, but the movie deals with so many very important and very tragic topics. And it just, again, is a great reflection of how valuable one's life is. And it's a very moving story as well. And it also deals with Fiona May's private life, her relationship to her husband, who's played by Stanley Tucci. It has very interesting musical elements. And they use music to communicate with each other. So the different characters use music to communicate with each other. And that's such an interesting choice because it's also written like that in the book. So it's not like a very brand new idea. But I always love that when writers or directors choose to go with that. Because, of course, in a movie, it's much easier to incorporate music. But music just sometimes gets the point across much better than a discussion would. And they use the music in the points of the movie where they kind of like reach a peak where you sometimes don't even know what to think and what to feel, and the music just kind of expresses it all, and it's a very smart choice. So the movie is a very intense watch. It's not a very lazy Sunday afternoon movie if you want to have a good time and you don't know what to watch. That's not your choice. But if you want to indulge and if you want to throw yourself into a very serious and very important topic that deals with real life struggles and real life's problems, then maybe this movie would be a very great experience for you. The acting is outstanding, but of course with this cast, that's like a given. The actor who plays Adam, he's also very talented and I think very well known at this point. So I think if you want to open yourself up to a very serious and dramatic and sometimes tragic story, and you just want to feel something a little more than just an average movie experience, then this is the movie for you. And also the book for you. If you want to read up on the real story by Ian McEwan, I highly recommend that as well. So I just wanted to move on to movie number 3 when I realized that movie also came out in 2017. And I remember that I think Call Me By Your Name also came out in 2017, another movie I love, but I don't want to talk about it today. So today, movie number 3 that I want to talk about will be Phantom Thread. Phantom Thread is by Paul Thomas Anderson, very well known. It was Oscar nominated. It was, I think, the last movie that Daniel Day-Lewis wanted to star in. I don't know if he keeps that promise, but I think I remember this discussion when the movie came out that he was like, okay, this is my last movie. So, it stars Daniel Day-Lewis. I think I don't have to say anything else. He is outstanding. He's amazing. And of course, he gives the movie the quality that it deserves, but the rest of the cast is just as great. It also stars Vicky Krieps, and it also stars Leslie Manville. They are the two, I don't even want to say minor characters, but of course Daniel Day-Lewis plays the main character, and they're like smaller main characters, but they play off him, and all of them play off each other so well. It's one of the most visually stunning movies I have seen, and also acting-wise, one of the most captivating movies I've seen, because very small gestures, sometimes just the way they look at each other, the way someone smirks, the way someone just blinks, the way someone moves their fingers or brushes through their hair, it's just insane. Not a lot of words are needed, and when words are needed and given, the writing of the movie is exceptional. So to this day, I still think about the movie a lot. I think the movie has one of the most surprising plot twists you could have ever imagined, but let's talk about the plot first. The movie stars Daniel Day-Lewis as Reynolds Woodcock, a designer, and he does like gowns, evening gowns, and like more like occasion wear, and he's very famous and very well known, but he's also pretty extravagant and a very difficult character to be around. He lives in a very grand house, which is also his working place, with his sister Cyril, played by Leslie Manville, and he escapes to the countryside, and in a bed and breakfast he meets a waitress named Alma, played by Vicky Krieps, and they fall in love, they get together, and he brings her to London, where the movie is set. I just realized all 3 movies I talked about are set in London. What? Anyway, so he brings her back to his house, and she moves in, and she's still his lover, but he also gets back into his normal habits again. And at first she is his muse, but then she kind of also starts working for him. But it's a very difficult relationship, because the moment he got back home, he basically switched off the very relaxed lover that he was in the countryside or wherever they were, and he turns into this very difficult designer who is not satisfied with anything, who's very extravagant, who's very difficult to be around, to work with. Even his sister basically learned how to deal with him. And then the movie kind of moves into the direction where you feel like, oh, they're going to split up, they're going to have a huge fight. And they do fight, like Alma and Reynolds, they fight a lot. But then comes the plot twist. And I have never experienced a plot twist like that. I was like, no, they did not. But I'm not going to spoil anything anymore, because I really don't want to spoil this very, very specific, amazing plot twist. You need to watch this movie for yourself. But oh my God, I think the way this movie is written, the way they produced and directed the movie, everything comes together magnificently. I can't even describe the aesthetic feeling that you get when you watch the movie. Everything is just so visually beautiful and so impactful that you just want to keep watching. Like literally your eyes are like, even if you don't like the plot, we will watch this, because the gowns are beautiful. The villa they live in is just so beautiful. When they escape and they have their lovers' weekend, when they meet the countryside and the sea and the little towns they walk through, oh my God, it just gives you such a beautiful feeling. And the movie is set in the 1950s, so it's the post-war era, and I'm a sucker for period movies. I think they are just the best. I really like them very much, and I can't believe this is the No, it's not the only one on my list, but 1 out of 2 movies. I mean, I did pretty good, you know? I could have thrown all the period dramas at you, and I didn't. So I'm really proud of that. But yeah, it was such a captivating story to follow. But again, mostly the visuals are just amazing. The cinematography is so impressive. And I mentioned the costumes before. They got the Oscar for costume design, and rightfully so. They deserved it so much. But I think Daniel Day-Lewis and Vicky Krieps play off each other with Leslie Manville in the mix, you know, but she has a minor character role, so she doesn't show up that much. She's in the movie regularly, but of course the main plot follows Alma and Reynolds. But the way they play off each other is very interesting because, of course, Daniel Day-Lewis has a very specific way of acting, and everyone knows that, and he is very into method acting, I think. But Vicky Krieps totally stands her ground. Like, she does not get intimidated. At least it doesn't look like it, or when it does, it totally fits the plot. So it's just very nice to follow their love story and then their evolving story and their relationship. And if I had to sum up my thoughts on the movie, I would say it's the most aesthetically pleasing movie I have seen in a long time, with the craziest plot twist thrown in. So I highly recommend you watch it soon. Movie number 4 on my list of movies that had a great impact on me is The Big Short. The Big Short is a movie from 2015, directed by Adam McKay. It stars Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Brad Pitt, and Christian Bale in the main roles. And do I have to say more? I don't think I do. It is one of the weirdest movies on my list because I never expected to put a movie on my list of movies that had an impact on me that deals with the housing crisis of 28. But yes, this movie was really, really good. And every time I meet a new person, at some point I make them watch this movie with me because it's so weird, but so interesting. And at first, when I started watching the movie, I was like, I'm never going to understand one word of what they're saying. But they explain it so well. I don't want to go further into the plot because I think I just summarized what the movie is about perfectly. It's about the housing crisis and the economical crisis that followed in 2008. But the way they make you understand what the real issue was, what the problem was, and what happened, they do it so well. And they do it by, first of all, explaining the real economical concept. And then they get someone famous or someone, well, you've definitely seen before, who will then describe what you've just listened to but probably didn't understand in very, very easy terms. And suddenly, you're an expert. It's insane the way this movie is made. Well, let's just say they were really smart when tackling that very difficult topic because they knew if we make a movie about that topic, we have to make everyone follow. We have to make everyone understand what the hell we're talking about. And most of us have lived through this crisis, but have we fully understood what was actually going on, what happened with this entire housing market bubble that existed? Probably not. But that movie really makes you understand what the problem was, what the issue was, and they do it in such a smart way. I can just applaud Adam McKay because that is such a good idea, and I think a lot of other very difficult movies with like very difficult topics that you would want your audience to understand should look at this movie and just copy it because it was such a great idea. So I recommend this movie. It's super interesting. Although you know what happens, you still feel the excitement and you hope for the best. And then when everything crashes, you kind of realize, okay, the best is just not happening. But the way it tackles it from so many different perspectives, all 4 main characters, so Steve Carell, Brad Pitt, Ryan Gosling, and Christian Bale, they go through the movie and they approach the topic of the crisis in very different ways. Not even all of them meet. I think just a couple of them actually meet, and the way they go through this crisis and they approach it is completely different. So it keeps it very interesting to follow each and every one of them, because they learn about this crisis and that it will blow up in everyone's faces in very different kinds of ways. And it's extremely devastating then when at the end of the movie you see real life pictures from the news and you see what happened to the people who were really responsible. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, it's devastating, but it's also it's history, you know? It's very, very real and around the corner history, because it's basically been a couple of years since the housing crisis, but it's a very good movie, a very solid storytelling about what happened. And the way they created this movie, they make it so interesting that even if you're not into anything historically relevant and if you're not into economics, you want to watch this movie. And first of all, you know, you want to keep watching this movie. You will make it to the end because of the way Adam McKay made this movie. And yeah, I definitely recommend it, just like the three ones before. And the final movie I want to talk about, or should I say movies, because I just couldn't decide. I'm sorry, I'm just going to admit it. Number 5 on my list is a tie between Frida, a movie from 2002 by Julie Taymor, and The Grand Budapest Hotel, or should I say Budapest Hotel? I'm actually not sure about the pronunciation, from 2014 by Wes Anderson. And I think, you know, when you think, like in terms of aesthetics, the movies are not that different because they are aesthetically and visually extremely unique. The Grand Budapest Hotel is anything you would expect from a Wes Anderson movie. Everything you ever knew about a Wes Anderson movie comes to life in the Grand Budapest Hotel. It's a very interesting story told in an extremely funny way. I love the cast. It's only famous people, as you would expect from Wes Anderson. It's Ralph Fiennes, Tilda Swinton, Bill Murray, many more I can't think of right now. It is so good. It's definitely a visual experience. Everything is very pink. Ooh, Saoirse Ronan is in that movie. Yeah, it's very pink, and that in itself is just the best thing. And the story is so weird. I think the story is set sometime between the wars, so sometime between 1918 and 1939. And it's set in a fictional city in the east of Europe. It's an experience. I'm not going to tell you anything else about the story because even if I tried, I don't think I could do it. Like, it's very complex and very unique, but again, it's a Wes Anderson movie. You know what you're getting yourself into, but it is definitely one of the most unique experiences that I've had in my life. And I think I can watch this movie over and over and over. And sometimes I just think about this one scene where Ralph Fiennes is questioned in the Grand Budapest Hotel, and he seems to be answering the police, but then he just runs off, and it's just so funny the way he just escapes, and it's so ridiculous. So it really makes you laugh. Yeah, just watch it and go through this experience yourself. You will not regret it. And you know, Frida is on my list because it's just as visually captivating, although in a completely different way. I hope all of you have already watched the movie, but if you haven't, it's about the life of Frida Kahlo. And the main part, so Frida Kahlo herself, is played by Salma Hayek. And I've just recently learned how much work and how much energy Salma Hayek has put into making this movie, creating this movie, and bringing this role to life and bringing Frida Kahlo to life. And I thought that was already so impressive. But what she created, I think the movie was also Oscar nominated, and rightfully so. It's just a masterpiece. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. The way it incorporates the art and the paintings by Frida Kahlo is so unique. The way they use animation and then create the real life version of that painting is so impressive. And I think visually it's one of the most stunning movies ever. And I'm very, very happy that Frida Kahlo is one of the most, impressive female artists that we still celebrate today, and that Salma Hayek created such a beautiful movie to honor her. And it also tells you a little bit about history, about Mexico, about everything that happened in Frida Kahlo's private life, which is also very interesting and very exciting. And the movie is one of the best movies to watch if you want a unique movie experience. And again, you will not regret it. So now that we've talked about all the movies I really thoroughly wanted to discuss with you, the 5/6 movies that were really, really important for me to mention to you, I just want to quickly read you a list of movie names that didn't really make it into my top 5/6, but are equally interesting, exciting, and also had some kind of impact on me. So I also really like a movie called Love, Rosie, Cruel Intentions, Death Becomes Her, Midsommar, Bad Times at the El Royale, The Father, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I already mentioned Call Me By Your Name, but here it goes again. The Sound of Metal, Midnight in Paris, and Crazy Rich Asians. So it's a wild bunch of movies, a wild mixture of movies, but I liked them, and I quickly wanted to mention all of them before we move on to the movies, well, the other movies. So let's talk about the movies I have never seen. It's mostly classics. It's mostly movies that are critically acclaimed, movies that are celebrated, that are just, amazing movies, at least in other people's opinion, because I haven't seen them yet. And I think it's really easy to just go through the list because, of course, I can't say anything about those movies. But what I've written down is Pulp Fiction. I know, shame on me. I've never seen Seven. I've never seen Dead Poets Society. I've never seen The Godfather. I've mentioned that before. I've never seen The Usual Suspects. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. I think this is like the worst on the list. And then also I wrote down Taxi Driver because I always wanted to watch that movie, but I've just never made it. And all of these movies are on my watch list. So let's see at what point in my life I'll actually make it. I will update you. But yeah, these are really famous movies I have never seen in my life. And now finally, we'll talk about movies that other people loved and I really didn't. So the first movie on my list has to be Matilda. And I mean the 1996 version. I mean, I know there's a new Matilda out there right now. I think it's on Netflix right now, but I never understood how people liked the 1996 Matilda. I didn't think it was particularly funny. I never liked Matilda as a character, and maybe it's just me, but I was really not a fan of that movie. Another movie I didn't really like was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I like Leonardo DiCaprio, I like Brad Pitt, I like Margot Robbie, and I like Quentin Tarantino. I love Django Unchained. I love Inglourious Basterds. These are really good movies. But I thought Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was so boring. I was bored throughout 3 hours of that movie. And then like the last 20 minutes, which were the very usual Quentin Tarantino shoots everyone minutes with like the great massacre at the end, which is in all of his movies. Yeah, that was good. But the rest, I mean, this movie just drags on. And I told you I like period movies. So I like movies, especially movies set in the 60s or the 70s. So this movie was made for me. I was the key audience. I was the one who should have loved the movie, but I really, really didn't. I thought the storytelling was way too slow. I didn't really connect to any of the characters except for Margot Robbie's character, but maybe that was because I know the real life story of Shannon Tate and I know what happened to her, and therefore there was some sort of connection because it was a very tragic story. And of course, Quentin Tarantino depicted it in a different way. And I did prefer that, of course, so much. I loved that they changed it and I didn't mind. And I know that Quentin Tarantino does that a lot. He changes history But why do you have to tell the rest of the story in such a boring way? I think the only thing that really saved the movie for me was the music. The music choices were exceptional. I still listen to some of those songs, and I discovered them through this movie. So it's not like this movie, didn't have a sustainable aspect for me. But I'm so sorry. I need more than the music in a movie to be good. So why? I really, really didn't like it. Another movie I really didn't like, but I think everyone else disagrees, is The Revenant. The Revenant is the movie Leonardo DiCaprio got his Oscar for. And honestly, why? This movie is basically 2 hours of groaning, crawling, slaughtering, and winter and snow. And Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the most talented actors. I really like him as an actor. He is so good in every single one of his performances, even in The Revenant. But sorry, that movie was just not good. And why did he get his Oscar for that part? I mean, what about Titanic? What about Catch Me If You Can? What about The Wolf of Wall Street? What about Shutter Island? What about every other movie that he ever made? I don't understand it. I never liked the movie. I had a really hard time getting through the movie. Not my movie. I'm so sorry. Not my movie. And another fan favorite on my list is La La Land. So La La Land, I'm very torn. I thought when I first watched it, it was quite boring. It was too long. The music was fine. The singing and the performances were okay. They were good. I did like Emma Stone. I do like Ryan Gosling in this movie. It's fine. But it's fine, I was really, really in tears when Moonlight won, but they announced La La Land, because when they won for 30 seconds, I was like, no! Why La La Land? No, just no. And then Moonlight won at the Oscars, and I was like, oh God, thank God. Because yes, I can see the appeal, but when I watched the movie, my first thought was, is it set in I don't know when it was released, 2018, 2017, 2018? Or is it set in the 50s? Because you literally couldn't tell. And I actually really understand and like the story. The plot of the movie isn't bad. But does anyone remember the horrible dancing scene in the stars? I mean, what's that, 40 minutes? At least it feels like it. A scene you could have completely cut out of a movie that was already way too long. I just don't like that movie. Well, yeah. It didn't impress me. I know everyone around me loved it. I think there is no one in my inner circle who didn't like it. I'm the odd one out. I'm sorry. But I stand by it. I am not a fan of La La Land. I also didn't really enjoy Fences. So Fences is a movie I saw in a time when I think there was a movie drought. It was a time when not a lot of good movies came out. And Fences, I had such high hopes for, because it's Denzel Washington. It's Viola Davis. I mean, it's amazing people, talented actors and actresses. I was like, oh my God, this has to be amazing. And then I realized, oh yeah, Fences is actually a play. And that makes so much more sense. I think it's one of those rare cases where a play is not necessarily an equally good movie. And Fences, I think, really didn't do it for me because of that. The acting was superb. The acting was really, really good. But the storyline just screams theater. It screams, I am a play. I belong on stage and not on the screen. And this is why I think I couldn't really fall in love with Fences at all. And finally, just to mention a few other movies I didn't necessarily enjoy. It doesn't mean I ultimately hate them or I dislike them so much that I can't stand them. But there are a lot of movies that, over the years just didn't really make it for me, that just were not my cup of tea, And I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of taste, and no one should feel bad for not enjoying a movie. So I'm just going to name a few other ones, and I just won't go into any further detail. I didn't really like the recent Gray Man, the Cruella movie. I didn't really like Birdman. I didn't really like A Star is Born, the Lady Gaga version. I didn't really like Jackie with Natalie Portman, although I think Natalie Portman did a really good job. I just didn't enjoy the movie. I think the movie was actually, unfortunately, really boring. I didn't really like a few Marvel movies, including Thor 2, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, The Winter Soldier. I know a lot of people will freak out now because I know that's on the top 10 Marvel movie list of a lot of people, and I never understood that. Have you seen the second Kingsman movie? Not good. The first one's pretty good. I don't know if you've ever heard about that Valentine's Day movie with a lot of famous people in. Yeah, not a good movie. I do not recommend that. Does anyone remember the Bling Ring Gang? No, not a good movie, although it stars Emma Watson and I really like her. So again, it's a matter of taste. It depends on your mood. It depends on when and how you watch a movie, but there are always going to be movies that you don't like. And, it's just interesting to see what different opinions for certain movies everyone has. I think it's quite interesting when I listen to specifically movie podcasts when some people rank like the latest movies, or like I've listened to so many best movies of 2022 podcasts lately. It's so interesting what makes everyone's list. And then sometimes I'm like, how could you even enjoy that movie? Or why isn't XYZ on the list, So it's definitely a matter of taste, a matter of your preference. Now that I think about it, I could name another 10 movies I really enjoyed. But maybe to sum up my podcast episode on movies, I should just name recent movies from 2022 I really enjoyed, and maybe you should check them out. I think most of you have probably seen Everything Everywhere All at Once. Amazing. I hope you've all seen Nope, such a good movie. I hope all of you have seen Glass Onion, the second Knives Out story. And then also, have you checked out The Menu? I mean, amazing. I have no words. It was just such a thrilling movie experience. And with that, this episode will come to an end. I hope you will only watch amazing movies in 2023. You won't, but I'm still crossing my fingers. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will talk to you next week. Bye!